Hey everyone, this is Mike Tholfsen from the Microsoft Education team. We are here with the latest remote learning with Microsoft EDU webinar. And we've been doing these for well over a month now. And honestly, this is the very first one we've had talking about families, which is a critical topic. And so today we've got a really cool show. We've got Joe Brazier from the Microsoft Education team and Devan and Shomari, who are both parents, and we're going to talk about the impact of distance learning and parents. And so we'll get to them in just a moment. We'll talk about our latest news first. Same three links we talk about every time because they're so important. The Microsoft Remote Learning site. This is all of our information and links. It's always up to date. The Teams Education Quick Start Guide, which is the nice handy PDF that can get you up and running with Teams, which is our primary platform for remote learning. And also we encourage you to sign up at the Microsoft Remote Learning community. We have over 5,000 educators from all around the world in this community, working together, learning from each other. The product team and the engineering team is also in this community, and we help schools out, we answer questions, get them on the right direction. So please join the community if you haven't already. So today's updates. Well, first off, this isn't brand new, but it's a great one given the theme of the show. And the Microsoft Family Center. If you've never gone to this site, it's on the educator community. Really, really cool stuff. There are all sorts of resources, ideas, tips for families. The other one that is just launching today, and this is another topic that is really critical during distance learning, is special education. So for any parents that have students in the special education realm or any sort of learning difference or maybe challenges at home, it gets a little trickier because you might not have the same support staff that you have when that student is at school. So we just are in the process of launching this new special education site. Actually, Joe Brazier and I both had a chance to help give feedback and help make sure that that's a really rocking site. So I'm really excited and proud that we were able to get out the level of sort of helpful and detailed information for the special education community, including parents. And then lastly, we just this morning put out a OneNote best practices and good hygiene. So in the age of COVID-19, we know how important hygiene is. Well, it turns out when you're using OneNote as a teacher or a student, but especially as a teacher, good hygiene is also good. So for example, putting 100 megabyte attachments in OneNote pages and then trying to distribute them, that's bad hygiene. Or doing things like dumping all sorts of files in OneNote all the time and using it as a file storage, that's bad hygiene. So we're trying to ensure that people are using good tips and tricks to keep their OneNote healthy. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Joe. So we have Joe from the Microsoft Education team. Joe and I work together. He'll introduce himself a bit more, but former special education teacher and now does a lot of great work with the education team. Devan and Shomari, I've basically met just before the show started, and we'll learn more about them. But they are both parents in the community, and we'll be talking a bit more about distance learning. And Joe's going to take it from here. So Joe, I will stop sharing, and I will let you start sharing. Thanks for being here.
All right, thank you, Mike, and I'm glad that we're able to get together to be able to do this, and the people that we brought on. Just a quick thing, like Mike said, I worked in special education for a very long time, and so right now trying to go through this remote learning and everything with my own kids is very trying. And as we are about to bring on Shomari and Devan to discuss through this, I kind of want to frame the discussion a little bit for us. Working and putting things together directly for parents is something that is maybe kind of a little bit new for us at Microsoft, and so this isn't an end all of everything. We're just kind of starting the discussions and just starting to put together the resources and supports for families. And so in framing that, I want to look through what learning at home kind of looks like, and thinking about the current challenges and a lot of the questions that are there. As we look at what this model kind of looks like. The state tests have been canceled, right? Yeah, the college exams, SATs and ACTs have been postponed. but they're still trying to figure out how colleges might want to leverage that information for admittance and what that looks like now, and making graduation based off of good faith efforts. So what does learning really look like right now? What's important, what's not important, and what is our roles as parents in that situation? As Mike brought up, how do we continue with individualized education programs, especially designed instruction? How do we get the supports to our students? I think about many of my students that I work with very closely because they had mobility issues. We had a lot of occupational therapy, physical therapy. What does that look like when it's now those specialists aren't able to come into the home, aren't able to come in and help? And there's a lot of stress put on families, even if there's multiple students, multiple children like that, or even just one of the kids has issues and extra needs that they're not able to access in the home. Here in Washington, our schools shut down in mid-March. If you consider that, if there was nothing done from mid-March to the end of the school year, and you think through the entirety of a student's K through 12 education program, that's 2.4% of lost instructional time. What we're trying to do is not fix it, not just add all of that back, but what can we do to kind of chip away at it? What will a new model of learning look like, and how can we help bring new practices into the fray that can help us continue learning if it's not another unprecedented situation like this, but if it's extended snow days. We get lots of storms here in Washington, some kind of power outage for extended areas, or we've had all kinds of disasters. So what do we do to be able to continue learning in some kind of semblance when things like this happen? And what is really has brought up is discussions around equity and access, not just access to technology or connectivity, but access to the content, access to instructors, access to supports, and what that looks like in making inclusive environments in remote learning and bringing that into the homes, right? And we'll have discussions, we'll bring it up, but like we said, children in the home, different levels. My kids are different reading levels, different age levels, but we may have students who are, some students may access special education programs. They're not able to do that. Older kids may need more support than younger kids, and what does that really look like? And so not trying to solve all the problems, what are we going to try to focus on things for today is thinking around equity, and when thinking of the roles of parents, and they're like, well, my kids don't have access to that. We are the voice for our kids. This equity has to be at the top of minds for everyone so that it doesn't get lost, and we don't want to continue to broaden gaps. This is really highlighting the gaps that exist, and we want to make sure that we're doing what we can to not broaden those gaps. Teaching from home and working from home, it's very difficult. I have a pretty good habits, I think, of working from home on a regular basis. I spent over 12 years teaching, but it's very difficult for me to try to go from working to teaching my own kids at home. I want to remain a parent. I want to still be the parent to my kids. It's hard for me to get into a teacher mode and expect that I'm going to deliver instruction. And so what kind of models will they look like at home, and how can I support all of my kids in the way that they need to be supported, right? And so want to take a second to give Shomari and Devan a chance to just briefly introduce themselves, and then we'll kind of go into the next slide and really have a discussion really around one question. So if I can just kind of, what I'll do is I'll have Shomari go first and just introduce himself and a little bit about him for a minute or so, and then I'll have Devan introduce himself, and then we'll just kind of have the discussion and get their views on a couple of things. So Shomari, go ahead.
Thank you, Joe. Shomari Jones. I'm the Director of Equity and Strategic Engagement for the Bellevue School District. I've been in this role for almost 6 years now. Did prior to that a whole lot of work in the Seattle region in the nonprofit arena, and discovered myself in an opportunity to provide substantial support to our students and families that are furthest from justice within the system that I work now. My job encompasses the Department of Family Engagement, also encompasses servicing our families who are experiencing homelessness and families who are in foster care. And in addition to that, I work a lot with our school board members and cabinet to address the inequities that are experienced by our students and families across the district, be it through policy or our practice. we try to transform our organization in ways to best support those that we seek to serve, our key stakeholders.
All right. Let me see. There we go. All right, and Devan, if you can just briefly introduce yourself as well.
Hi, my name's Devan Cabanilla. I'm the Senior Project Manager for Continuous Improvement at the Seattle School District. And continuous improvement is a new way of working in the operations and logistics within the school system. And also how do we continually look at improving education within the classroom itself. Most of the work that I'm involved with revolves around improving really large scale things like how do we improve the bus system, how do we improve decision making, planning processes, and most recently we just delivered how do we get technology and hardware out to our students in a pandemic crisis. So these are all new things that we're trying to work through, and going through that, also documenting how are we innovating, how are we experiencing change, and also how are we maintaining equity inside of those things. Outside of the district, I've mainly worked in healthcare, and then additionally been doing community support. Right now I'm calling you from the International District in Seattle, and we distributed about 5 dozen laptops alone just to the children inside the International District. And I've been a father myself for 12 years. I have 3 children, one who's on the spectrum, and then another 2 who do work within general ed.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're going to kind of go, and I want to open up open the discussion to what is the role of parents and families in remote learning. And last week I got together virtually with Shomari and Devan, and before we kind of really got our plan together for this discussion, we kind of asked how is it going, and the answer that Devan gave was, I don't know how it's going. And I think that is a common feeling that is going around. It's a sense that I get when I sit in on leadership webinars. I sit in on webinars with leaders of color in the area, when I sit in on different kind of just environments and settings with different educators and leaders and people talking through it, and talk to different parents in my neighborhood. There is just, I'm not quite sure how to manage this. Even my kids are doing great in school, but now all of that is thrust upon me. I'm just not quite sure what I'm supposed to do, how I'm supposed to do that. And so Devan or Shomari, I'm not sure who wants to kind of jump in first, but just thinking through what is that role of parents, and what are some of the thoughts that come to mind when you think about teaching and learning now taking place more in home than in schools?
I can jump in. I think that, we always denote that the parent and the family members are the first teachers of our students, but now we're seeing a transition where the skill sets that our teachers go to school for many years for are being thrusted upon our family members to have to accept and adopt without the formalized training, in ways that we require them to support their students when those students are seeking to learn at home. And so my hope is that in our education system, we are continuing to provide the direct service to our students who are now taking on this education prowess at home, while seeking the parent to simply check in and support that student by way of ensuring that they are organizing themselves and getting the work done, and jumping in on the, for us, we're using Microsoft Teams, so Teams calls at varying times within the day, and building a structure that was never in place at home prior, but was always in place at school. So bringing that rigidity of that school day to the home space is what the role of parents has transitioned into. But the complexity around that is that home doesn't look like school. There can be a variation of things that are happening in that home, from job loss to family experiencing COVID-19. And so, like to your earlier statement about Devan's reply to how is it going, we're seeing it all over the map with regard to some people thriving and really adopting and accepting what we're rolling out, to some people not yet having the opportunity to check in or sign in to Microsoft Teams to begin the process of continuing their education. So we have some work to do in this arena if this continues to move forward in the way that it has. But we want to, as best as possible, especially through our family engagement efforts, support those family members and those parents in ways that they need in order to continue to be an active and productive in the process of supporting their children through this education and through this hard time.
Yeah. Devan, would you like to share?
Yeah, I think the experiences are definitely going to be very different for parents, and being outside of that school environment has really been challenging. I experienced that today, and an example of that was my child not wanting to do work because why did it matter anymore? and that falls into grading standards, the attention or inattention from teachers and principals, and then like I realized I have to sort of become a coach, and my wife, who I've relied on to do some of the details, she specifically said, you need to go talk to them, which means I need to go make them do their work. And so I had to try to start thinking about, okay, I'm going to teach them a lesson right now in a kind of coaching manner, which is you have to try hard, because there are things that you're going to have in life which you don't want to do. So work hard and get through it. And these are non-academic skills that I'm trying to get through to my child. And it's very challenging for me to look at my children in a problem-solving way. I just kind of want to care for them and be an advocate for them to others, but then I have to switch gears, and now I have to be a motivator in their academic life in a way that I didn't have to be. So how much space am I taking as a teacher? I don't think I'm doing it very much, and then also I don't think I'm doing it very well. And how I'm going to improve that at home, I think we just got okay at being at home and doing education maybe just this week. And are we on week 5 now? Week 4? Yeah, week 6. Yeah, I don't even know, but I feel like we're just barely okay as of this week. And yeah, it might change tomorrow. I don't know.
You bring up a good point, Devan, and that is the relationship that's been between schools and homes. And maybe you guys kind of touch on this a little bit, but the environment of a school has been designed to build new skills, to push students along their learning, and to help them thrive, right, in those settings. Whereas home has been a place where they get to relax and have a little bit of fun and have that family connection, right? So you've got socializing and developing new school skills and being able to be pushed and thrive, like going to a gym to work out, and you work much harder on things, and then you go home to recover and connect with family, and that being mixed together, I think as what you're kind of describing, Devan, is creating it's creating a relationship between you and your kids that maybe you're not quite wanting, right? And I think that's been my hesitation for becoming teacher mode at home is my own kids don't need that version of me. They need the dad version of me. They need their parent at home and their teachers at school. And I think one of the things that we want to look into, and I know we'll discuss later, is what ways can we start to build the skills? I think that you're saying, what does school matter? What skills need to be built? How can we help kids start to leverage some of these skills that employers are looking for, that colleges are looking for, at home, in a manner that it doesn't seem like sit down and do this now, right? There's a lot of social emotional anxiety and behaviors that stem from things I'm not very good at that I will do whatever I can to avoid. And so maybe the next piece of this discussion is what maybe strategies or things do you see or employ to try to help with some of the, I don't want to just keep throwing the word equity out there, but thinking through some of the ways that you're able to make this work and understanding there's ways that other families are also struggling with it. I am fortunate to be able to speak English and to understand what you guys are saying, and to be able to sit in a video chat and understand what I'm directed to do. But what other kind of ways do we want to continue to think through how we support all students and leveraging the ways that our kids can be advocates for others and other things like that? And I know both of you work with things around equity and supporting families. So just thinking about maybe some of the things that you're doing or seeing to support all of these families. Shomari, you can jump in first if you like.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of fascinating points and synopses that are firing right now. I'm thinking about Devan's statement about being a coach, and a mentor and a social emotional learning or awareness friend to the students who are themselves going through a really rough time. And so I can imagine that the behaviors that are happening at home are likely different than the behaviors that normally happen at home for many of the students that are now, quote unquote, stuck in an environment where they don't get to be with their friends, and they don't get to move from classroom to classroom and have this nuanced change throughout the day. But I think there's not much harder than being a parent who is newer to our community, who's immigrated to our country, who may not have English proficiency, who may not have a network or access to or knowledge of the access to the resources necessary for continuing to support their student. And so, one of the questions that we have to ask ourselves is, are we inadvertently widening the gap, especially with regard to the already existing gap and the already existing technology divide that exists amongst our folks and families of privilege and our folks and families who are not of privilege? And so just thinking about some of the efforts that are coming out of my team, we are putting forth a concerted effort to reach out individually by phone, by door knocking and home visitations, by personal relationships to families that we've identified who may be the furthest from justice. We can look at our student information system and see who hasn't even provided us with an email address or a telephone number, and imagine that maybe they're not getting communication as to what's happening with the district. When we did laptop distribution, we gave out laptops to all of our families, and we're in a fortunate enough position to have enough resources in our district to suffice meeting the needs of all of our families. But 350 of them came back unclaimed because maybe that family was not reached out to. Maybe that family did not understand the message that was delivered to them through email in English or through telephone in English. And there could be a myriad of experiences that are happening where our families are not getting what they need to continue what many of our other families are capable of continuing with regard to supporting their education. We see a lot of gaps in people having access to Wi-Fi and hotspots. So we ordered as many as possible that T-Mobile could provide us to be able to distribute those out. I think to date, we've given out about 2,700 computers and about 700 hotspots to families so they can connect. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they know how to utilize these devices. And so I visited a center during day one of the Technology Distribution Center, and I observed families standing in a line to get their PC, and once their PC was checked out to them, there were several people who had to go to the resource table to learn how to use it. And some of that learning was even just knowing where the button was to turn that computer on. So you can imagine that there are some folks in our community who are just perpetually falling behind on this, education rat race. In addition, food as a basic need is such a big and plays an important role in even just a family being prepared on a daily basis to engage in education. So we do have a tremendous amount of efforts going on to ensure that we have sites all across our district and our system for families to be able to pick up food for the day and breakfast for the morrow, and a lot of partnership with our community service providers who are really stepping up to the plate to ensure that we're meeting the needs of those individual families. So we know that there's gaps. We're monitoring those gaps. We're looking for those food deserts. We're looking for those technology divide opportunities for us to mitigate those issues that our families are having, and really just being conscious and mindful that while we are getting some positive responses from some of our community as to their sense of feeling connected, engaged, and belonging, we have a whole lot of people out there who aren't even answering those surveys. And so, it really does jade the perspective of the information that we do receive.
Awesome. Thank you. Devan, what are your thoughts?
Oh. Microphone.
You're muted, Devan.
Microphone.
Gotcha. Yeah, I'm thinking about right now, I'm in the international district, and we just distributed laptops here the other day, and we have a diverse community. Some are in low income situations. English aptitude is not there. And one of the things that we've had to do is be very unconventional, very creative in how we get things to families that may be in the gap. And for the district here particularly, we did not distribute the laptops through ourselves. We relied on neighborhood groups to do that. So rather than have them come to us for technology, we brought the technology to the community groups who know who those families are. That was one thing that was different. Another aspect besides technology, low tech, we've even taken the learning packets that are by paper, besides distributing them at local schools, we've also distributed them to local areas that might have better access to families, places like even restaurants you can get some of the learning packets at. And then the other aspect is having teachers at the classroom level identify where are the families in need. It's very easy as a system or as an organization to try to make processes and flows for education, and really the people who have the best information are those who are with the students directly. And the expectation there is that teachers who know their students well enough will be able to provide the level of contact that maybe I don't as an administrator. And hopefully the experience that families are getting from that is, even though they may not be on top of everything happening inside the digital learning space, the teacher is filling in as best as they can. And my thinking is that for those who may be from different countries, who are recent immigrants, we are trying to communicate in all the top 12 languages that are in the Seattle area. And at minimum, they are being told, your child has a schedule, your child has assignments, and we'll handle the rest.
Awesome. We can keep going, but there's a lot of information for parents. And when we last talked, we thought through what is maybe just one thing that each of us would want to be sure that parents are left with in this whole remote learning and what this looks like and what their role is. So I'll give you guys kind of just a minute or two to kind of talk through what does that leave behind, what is that last thought you want to make sure that parents have at the top of their minds, and then I'll kind of conclude and close this out with maybe some of the things that Microsoft does to support that. Shomari.
Yeah, I think the leave behind that I want to share with parents, and it may be a little bit more topical to the system or the organization in which I work, is that I understand that we're not quite yet at the point where we are meeting and serving everyone where they are and in the way that they need to be served in order to have complete academic proficiency or even feel completely supported by the district. But there are folks and teams of individuals in probably every school district across the nation whose entire intent is to support the communities that are definitely in need of our support. And if there are ways that our families can find methods to communicate, I know that not everyone has access to technology. I know that not everyone has access to a telephone even, but through your local service provider or through entities that are set up in the school system, we need to hear from you as to how we can best support you. As I work on teams with individuals who are pretty far away from the classroom and far away from the knowledge base of some of the challenges our families are experiencing, I think it's important that we hear from the voice of our key stakeholders, our community service providers, our families, even our students. And so with great hope, I'm praying that families do find a way to, if they are running into experiences where they don't feel as though they can support their students as best as possible, that they pass along that information so that we can step up and show up for the families in the ways that they need.
Thank you. Thank you. Devan?
For me, my final thoughts are lingering on, am I doing enough to make my child comfortable at home? And at some point, I need to accept, no, I'm not gonna work as well as a professional teacher would. And I have to accept, yeah, that's okay. I'm not a teacher, but at least I know there is some kind of activity, some kind of learning that's happening. And for that to happen, I think people just need to be confident there is support, there is resource going on, whatever your school system is. And as parents, you just need to wake up and go get it, wherever that may be, and just accept that, yes, I'm not a teacher, but there is somebody out there who is trying to do some kind of learning, and I can at least just try to support it and encourage it and find it for my child.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate you both coming on. I'd like to, before we continue, I want to kind of share a story before really concluding or finishing. And I had a parent called me one day at the end of the school day before I had left, and she was asking about her daughter. She said, you know what, so-and-so, they told me that they didn't do any work today at school. And I kind of laughed because that day that student actually done more work than I'd been able to get them to do over the course of the couple weeks prior. And I explained to them, I said, actually, she actually did the most writing I've been able to get out of her for almost a month because she wanted to write some thank you letters to her friends, to the peer tutors I had come in the classroom. And we had a functional academic program going through writing and all these things. And I said, you know what they would really enjoy is if you typed it, and then it would look really nice. What do you think about that? She goes, oh, they would absolutely love that. And I said, great, you can write this and then we can go through it and we can update it, and then you can type it, and then we can make sure that gets to your friends. What do you think about that? And she says, oh, I love that idea. And so we went through, and essentially she did her rough draft, her revision, she typed it, and then sent it to her friends. That's the most I've been able to get out of that student, because it didn't seem like we're going to sit down and we're going to do writing right now. We're going to sit down and we're going to do this right now. And so what's kind of been up on the screen is what that role of parents is really find ways to take advantage of learning in everything, right? Helping cook and measure and answering questions, and being able to find ways for students to grow. And it's not easy for everyone, right? Yeah. These non-academic skills are important, but what kind of do they mean? And I'll get to that in a second. But we all want to prepare our students for work and life and whatever that looks like. My daughter's in middle school. I want to make sure that she's got some of the skills to start getting a job to help pay for gas, or help pay for a car, or help pay for literally anything when she gets into high school. And then to explore and build new interests, right? What do you do outside of school? I don't know, I just do homework. Well, we've got to find ways to build and explore new interests in our students, right? And so there's all kinds of future-ready skills and future-ready learners and all kinds of things. These are the 5 C's that we talk about at Microsoft, and it's how can we help students build their creativity, their communication skills, which is really important right now, their collaboration skills, become critical thinkers and even computational thinkers. How can they think through problems systematically to find the issues in them? And we're like, well, I don't even know where to begin with this. And this being something that is put on by Microsoft, me working at Microsoft, there's a couple things I want to leave you with, and really there's only 2, because Mike does a great job of sharing the inclusive classroom tools and immersive reader, and we've got special education links, and there's a lot of amazing things out there, and I encourage you to look through them when you find the time. As you're in quarantine, find the time to look through them. But even if you start to think of only a couple things, Minecraft Education Edition is an amazing platform that is available for everyone. They've put together stuff just for remote learning. If your kids can access it. If your kids have an education email or an account through their school, they can access this. If you have questions on it, if you go to that blog, there's ways to look through it. The district that I moved into, they don't use the Microsoft tools, but they have access to the accounts. So my student is able to do it, and he's able to utilize the lessons. And within there's visual coding and AI and all kinds of things that are built in there. In fact, one of the activities that we did, I heard that at MIT, many of the students started to rebuild the campus and rebuild the buildings. And so the activity that we did the other day is we rebuilt our house. And then my wife was like, oh, this is a great idea. Can you put in all wood floors? And so we started to do a remodel that she wants in Minecraft and get to kind of see what that would look like. So that's the activity that I was able to do with my son, and we're able to go look and what kind of scale model and do measurements, and there's all kinds of activities to do around that. So Minecraft is a great way to do that, and they can collaborate with friends from a distance, and it is a great tool for that. The other one, as far as helping students kind of find their voice and build their voice, is Flipgrid, and leveraging the video recording capabilities of being able to do that. I even put one together for my grandmother-in-law, who she lives on her own, but we want to still make sure that we're able to share moments with her, communicate with her, let her know what's going on. So we actually created one, and my kids and their cousins are all able to make just short videos to let grandma know what's going on, that she's always in our minds, that she's always thinking of us. But on the other side of it, my daughter, she does theater, and wanting to make sure that she continues to work on her projection, her voice, her thinking around storytelling. Those are all things that are important. That's all part of the process of learning, and being able to present is more than it's more than just look at me. It's what is it, the message I'm trying to get across. And so leaving you with those couple things, if you look through Minecraft and the resources that are available here, and you look through Flipgrid and the resources that are available there, these are tools that can start kids at just about any age and take them through with a little creativity on. Mike did some resources. Some of these may be redundant, but there's a family learning center. There's guides and stuff for parents. We're continuing to build more information out, and want to continue to make sure that we're supporting parents to support their children and support their kids. So lots of great resources that we want to make sure that you have access to. And I'm sure that these links are included in, but other webinars of note, I went through the list and just said, hey, here's some other ones you need to make sure that you look at. And there's an entire playlist. Mike has done a great job with all the resources that are out here. And we want to say thank you. I think just the last thought is this has been a chaotic time, and the parents, the teachers, the students, the leaders have done a monumental job in shifting from school as usual to school in a whole new way in a short period of time. And I just want to take a moment to realize the feat that's been done, and just say thank you for the work that's been done, and that we just want to continue to partner and learn together and work together and all that. So I will shift it back over to Mike, but thank you again to Devan and Shomari for joining us and giving your voice to this parent webinar.
Thank you, Joe.
Yes, thank you both for coming today, and thank you, Joe. This is great. Actually, one of the reasons why this topic, I mean, I like a lot of the topics, but today, just as a parent myself, and a lot of the things that both Devan and Shomari were saying resonated really well with me, just because I think we're having the same struggles as everyone else out there with our daughters doing remote learning, and it's just very different. And she's a different student when there's no students around. She's very extroverted, so it's there's definitely challenges there. So that one definitely spoke to me personally. So thanks for all of you coming today.
Mike, can you put up your slides, please? I'm not seeing them.
Oh, okay. Let me try that again. They looked like they were up on my end, but I guess that they weren't. So hold on, I will share and unshare. 1 second here. Moment while I go back into Teams and reshare. And let me know, Maryline, if that's coming through.
Working on it. Yes, it's coming on.
Great. Okay. So the Family Center, we've told you 3 times now. I told you first, Joe told you again, I'll tell you a 3rd time. The Family Center is great. The brand new special education site is just launching today. And man, if you have ever seen me tweet about something, I'm going to be tweeting about that for sure. I'm going to be plastering that everywhere I know. And also the OneNote best practices and good hygiene. So please be a good citizen with all of your OneNote friends and wash your hands and don't jam giant attachments and distribute them to the world. That'd be great. That link is there. And in terms of the PowerPoint today, that'll be posted later tonight, and the webinar itself will be posted on YouTube, the recording, by tomorrow morning. All of our videos are at this playlist link here. We're almost up to, Maryland, we're getting almost 25. We have to have a party at the 25th show. I don't know. We're getting close. I don't know where we're at. We're getting there. And then this link here, the education support site. So please, if you have a problem or a bug or an issue, this is educator focused. It is not IT admin, because sometimes those are more complex. But if you're a teacher with a challenge, we have a whole channel dedicated to you for people to help out. So file a ticket there. And on Monday, we have Alan November, the Alan November, for those of you that only think of him as legendary. Well, he's still a legend, but he's going to be on our show, and I'm very excited. I've known Alan for a few years, and he's going to be talking about distance learning in a way that only Alan November can. So that's on Monday. Please join us. And then the full schedule is right below here at that link. Other than that, thank you a ton to Maryline, our producer, and thanks Charles behind the scenes as well. And we will see you soon.